Number 1.
31-year-old William Billy Smolinski was last seen on August 24, 2004 in Waterbury, Connecticut. He went missing that afternoon after telling a neighbor he was headed up north for a few days. He hasn't been seen or heard from since. William Billy Smolinski was last seen on August 24, 2004 at his home at 130 Holly Street in Waterbury, Connecticut. At approximately 3:30 p.m. Billy went to his neighbor's house to ask him to look after his German Shepherd named Harley while he went up north for 3 days to look at a car he was interested in buying. Billy hasn't been seen or heard from since. When the neighbor went to check on Harley the next day, the house was locked with the dog inside and Billy's pickup was still in the driveway. Police found his wallet and keys tucked under the seat inside his truck. On the morning of the day he went missing, Billy had visited his former girlfriend, Madeline Gleason, around 4 a.m. They had dated for a year and had recently broken up because Billy believed she was seeing a man named Chris Sorensen. According to Gleason, Billy was a little depressed when he left her home. According to police reports, the last 3 calls Billy made were to Chris Sorensen. Sorensen, who lived in the nearby town of Woodbridge, told authorities he had received a message from a male caller telling him to watch his back on August 24. Detectives later determined the message was from Smolinski. Before calling Sorensen, Billy had contacted one of his former girlfriends to invite her on a trip to Six Flags the next weekend. Around 3 p.m. he drove to a local Burger King where he purchased 2 hamburgers and fries, according to receipts found in a trash bin inside his home. Smolinski deposited most of his last paycheck in the bank prior to his disappearance. His bank accounts have not been accessed since then. In 2006, police got a tip about Sean Karpiuk, Madeline Gleason's son. They reported hearing that Karpiuk had killed William Smolinski because he had beaten up Gleason. He claimed that Karpiuk and another man named Jason Lee then buried Smolinski at one of the sites Sean had been working at. He stated that they dug a hole and buried Billy in a spot that concrete was poured over. Karpiuk died from a drug overdose in 2005 before police had a chance to question him. A few years later, detectives received another tip involving Sean Karpiuk. In 2008, a man named Chad Hansen told investigators Smolinski had been murdered and that he knew where the body was. He claimed his friend Sean Karpiuk had beaten Smolinski to death and that he had helped him bury the remains. Based on Hansen's tip, authorities conducted searches in Seymour, Connecticut in 2008, Naugatuck State Forest in 2010, and Oxford, Connecticut in 2011. Those searches didn't turn up any leads, and in 2011 Hansen was charged with interfering with police and making a false statement. Authorities believe he deliberately lied to them in order to mislead the investigation. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to one charge of making a false statement and was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Both Hansen and Karpiuk are considered persons of interest in Billy's case. Witnesses told police Hansen had bragged about killing Smolinski with Karpiuk and said his body would never be found. The Smolinski family put up flyers about Billy's in Waterbury and the surrounding towns after his disappearance. In 2005, Billy's mother Jan Smolinski was arrested for putting up posters at a school where Gleason dropped off and picked up kids. In 2006, Madeline Gleason sued Billy's family for alleged harassment and defamation of character, claiming that they had falsely accused her of being involved in the case. Gleason was awarded $52,000 in damages. In 2015, the state Supreme Court overturned the trial court's decision on First Amendment grounds. The case was remanded to the trial court and later withdrawn by the plaintiff. Billy Smolinski's family fears for his safety and say it's uncharacteristic of him to leave without being in contact with them. Authorities initially suspected Billy left home on his own, but they now suspect foul play. Despite numerous searches over the years, no trace of Billy has been found. Both Chad Hansen and Sean Karpiuk remain persons of interest in Billy's disappearance. His case remains unsolved. In 2009, federal legislation known as Billy's Law was introduced in Congress to help streamline the missing persons databases available to law enforcement. Billy's Law is intended to help ensure that other families won't experience the delays and frustration that the Smolinskis have gone though in the search for their missing son. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of William Billy Smolinski, please contact the Waterbury Police Department at 203-574-6941 or the New Haven FBI office at 203-777-6311.
Number 2.
Deanne Hastings went missing in November 2015 from her house in Spokane, Washington. Her disappearance was very sudden and left her close ones grappling for explanations. Investigation discoveries disappeared. The Long Way Home paints a vivid picture of the mysterious disappearance and tries to find an answer to the numerous questions that were raised in the wake of the terrible event. Let's dig deep into the case and find out if Deanne was ever found, shall we? Deanne Hastings was a cheerful mother of 3 who had a difficult past. Although she had a wonderful childhood, her parents separated when she was 15. The show mentioned that the challenging situation led to her getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder. According to the show, her mental health condition led to her living through occasional breakdowns when she would isolate for a few days but respond to calls and texts. Moreover, while in college, Deanne got pregnant with her first child, Hayden. Although she and the child's father decided to raise the child, Deanne's diagnosis did not allow them to remain together for long. Deanne then moved to Texas and got married and had 2 children, but her marriage broke down after 9 years. By November of 2015, Deanne had moved to Spokane, Washington. She was quite excited to start her studies at a cosmetology school and got engaged to Mike Tibbetts just 4 months before her disappearance. With her life finally looking up, her sudden disappearance came as a shock to her family. On November 3, 2015, Deanne attended her first day of classes in cosmetology school before leaving a note for her fiancé, saying she would be going to a nearby store. Mike found the message on his return and waited for his fiancée, but she never returned. Anxious, Mike drove down to the store himself, but there was no sign of Deanne. He then used the GPS to locate her vehicle and found it abandoned in a nearby parking lot. Moreover, when he found Deanne's phone still inside her car, he realized something might have happened to her. The following morning, the cosmetology school reported that Deanne hadn't turned up for her classes. Shortly after, Mike received a message about Deanne's credit card being used in a grocery store in Cheney, Washington, but by the time Mike reached the place, his fiancée was nowhere to be seen. When Mike was finally able to see the CCTV footage from the grocery store 2 days later, he noticed Deanne acting quite erratically. Moreover, people who met her stated that Deanne looked quite dazed and kept mentioning that someone had drugged and kidnapped her. However, when tracking the credit cards, they discovered that they were being used in and around Spokane even after her disappearance. The cards soon led authorities to Randy Riley, who initially told police that Deanne had voluntarily given him her credit cards. However, after Deanne's driver's license was found outside a nearby deli, authorities brought Randy in for questioning. Surprisingly, Randy suddenly changed his story and said that although he had met Deanne before her disappearance, they only spent a few hours together. Later, Randy found Deanne's coat, driver's license, and credit cards in the same place where they initially met and decided to use them. He also admitted to being the one who discarded the license. Unfortunately, Randy's story could never be corroborated, and the police met a dead end. That was the last lead authorities had, and the case slowly lost traction. Although it is still considered an active investigation, the police have run out of leads to follow. However, Deanne's family keeps her alive in their memories and still hopes for her safe return. Deanne Hastings' son, Hayden, was quite close to his mother. The two shared an intimate bond, and Deanne loved being there for each of his achievements. Hayden was just 17 when his mother vanished and was almost about to graduate high school, after which he had planned on joining the military. Incidentally, he was also the recipient of the last text Deanne ever sent out. The text, where Deanne talked about her first day in school and said she hoped her son was proud of her, reaffirmed the incredible bond she and Hayden shared. At present, Hayden is married to Melanie Green, although he prefers privacy regarding his personal life. He is also quite close to Deanne's mother, who has been his support ever since the terrible incident. However, With Hayden preferring to keep his life under wraps, his present whereabouts remain unclear. It is impressive how he has made significant strides in his life despite the heartbreaking tragedy, and we hope success never eludes him in the future.
Number 3.
38-year-old Eric Lee Franks was last seen in Saginaw, Michigan on March 21, 2011. He disappeared after checking out of the Miller Motel and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Eric Lee Franks checked into the Miller Motel in Saginaw, Michigan in late 2010. He moved there from Ohio to reconnect with a former girlfriend after finding out that he had a 15-year-old daughter with her. He was there for approximately 5 months when he disappeared. Eric checked out of the motel on March 21, 2011. His former girlfriend told police that she saw Eric that day removing belongings out of his motel room. The motel owner says he did not see Eric that day, but stated that he did see the former girlfriend removing items from Eric's motel room. Eric was reportedly last seen leaving the motel in his dark bronze 2001 Chevy Malibu sedan with Ohio license plate number EMH4902, heading north on Dixie Highway. Eric's cell phone was used after his disappearance, but never left the Saginaw County area. Eric's car, which was last seen in 2011, when he disappeared, was found in northern Michigan in September of 2020. The tip came in after a woman in California, who was watching a video about Eric's disappearance on YouTube, ran a Carfax check on his car and discovered that it had gotten an oil change in Clare on August 31. The police contacted the shop and contacted the current owners of the car. The vehicle is currently at the Michigan State Police lab being processed. The garage that the car was presumably hidden inside for the past 9 years has a connection to Eric's former girlfriend, Kendra Firmingham. The garage belonged to Gerald Rutledge, who Kendra was a caretaker for at the time of Eric's disappearance. Kendra later moved to Florida and died in 2016. Gerald Rutledge died in April 2020, and his belongings, including the missing car, were put up for sale. A man in Clare County purchased it, and that individual is who police obtained it from. Eric's family believes Eric is deceased, and the last person known to have seen him alive died in 2016. The details regarding his disappearance remain unclear, and his case remains unsolved. Caucasian male with black hair and brown eyes. He stands 6'0" tall and weighs 175 pounds. Eric's left toe is partially amputated, and he wears a full set of dentures. His ears are pierced, and he had chin-length hair at the time of his disappearance. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Eric Lee Franks, please contact the Michigan State Police at 989-495-5559 or the Crime Stoppers Anonymous tip line at 989-495-5557.
Number 4.
At the age of 25, Jelani J.J. Day was attending the Illinois State University, ISU, to earn his master's degree in speech pathology and dreamed of becoming a doctor when he abruptly disappeared. He resided in an off-campus flat in Bloomington and often visited family in Danville to keep up with all aspects of his life, yet it stopped in late August. The 23rd was the last time anyone from Jelani's family spoke to him, and each call since that date has gone to voicemail. As per his mother, this is uncharacteristic because Jelani was the one who usually checked in several times a day. According to records, Jelani's department head became highly suspicious when he failed to show up to class for multiple days. Therefore, on August 25, 2021, after many attempts to reach the responsible young man proved unsuccessful, he was reported missing. It subsequently came to light that he was last seen on the surveillance footage of a local Beyond Hello store at about 9:10 a.m. on August 24. Jelani's white 2010 Chrysler 300 vehicle was also in the parking lot. Jelani entered the shop wearing light shorts, a blue Detroit Lions baseball hat, a black Jimi Hendrix t-shirt, and black shoes. The day after Jelani J.J. Day was reported missing to the authorities, 2 days after he vanished, his abandoned car was recovered from a wooded area south of Illinois Valley YMCA in Peru, an hour away from his house. A search of his vehicle then revealed that the clothes he had last been seen wearing were tucked away inside, so there's no chance Jelani could still be in them. Officials then used K9 dogs to explore the area for any trace of the 25-year-old, but to no avail. All this while, his family and ISU faculty were pleading within their community to come forth with any information. On September 4, 2021, an unidentified body was discovered on the south bank of the Illinois River, east of the Route 251 bridge, which made people theorize that it could be Jelani's remains. However, the police have given no such indication and merely asserted that identification could take days or weeks. In a public release, they also added, "We ask that people refrain from speculation as the investigation remains ongoing." With that said, 16 days later, on September 20th, law enforcement deputies openly asked the public for tips, urging them to help out in any way they could. It has since been declared that the body found is separate from Jelani's case. But his mother has stated that she believes the police's attention to the same dwindled following this discovery. She told WGLT, "I understand that there are other crimes that they have to investigate, but it seems like I only have this one detective. Once he stops, does that mean we stop looking for my son?" Furthermore, she once took to Facebook to compare the stark differences in the efforts applied in her son's matter and Gabby's. She simply wants help in locating Jelani safe and sound. Jelani's mom also appeared on GMA and stated, "I shouldn't have to beg. I shouldn't have to plead. I shouldn't have to feel that there is a racial disparity. I shouldn't have to feel anything like that. I want these people that have these resources to realize that this could happen to them." His family has conceded that they'll never stop looking for Jelani and have offered a $25,000 reward for his return. A GoFundMe page has also been set up to finance their search. Jelani is a black male who stands at 6'23" and weighs 180 pounds. He has short brown hair, brown eyes, and facial hair. If you have any information regarding his whereabouts from August 24 onwards, please do not hesitate to contact Bloomington Dispatch at 309-820-8888 or Detective Paul Jones at 309-434-2548.
Number 5.
Gretchen Anthony lived in a house on Sunshine Drive in the Mallory Creek community in Abacoa, Palm Beach, Florida. She got divorced twice and had a daughter with her first husband, whom they were co-parenting successfully. She was also working with Viking Utility in an HR position. In 2015, Gretchen married for the second time. She and her second husband, David Anthony, seemed blissfully happy with each other initially. Yet, as their marriage progressed, the couple slowly started drifted apart, and a few days before her disappearance, David and Gretchen had petitioned for a divorce. After the divorce petition, David, who went back to living with his mother, suddenly expressed a desire to move to Costa Rica. On the other hand, Gretchen was happy after being free of her estranged husband. She seemingly went on dates and was happily co-parenting her child with her first husband. Gretchen was highly active on social media. With the onset of coronavirus, she used to use social media platforms daily to communicate with people, yet, after March 19, 2020, her social media profile suddenly became dormant and remained so. Gretchen went off the grid completely, and most people who knew her were concerned. There was a rumor flying about that Gretchen was sick, though if people texted her, they did not receive any reply. On March 23, Gretchen's employer and others were extremely worried when she did not arrive for work. On reaching out, they received a text where she said that she had tested positive for COVID and was being moved from the Jupiter Medical Center to a government COVID facility in Belle Glade. Even Gretchen's first husband received the same kind of text where she said that she would be put in a coma as her COVID has gotten serious. Suspecting foul play because of the horrible grammar and spelling being used in the text, he reported Gretchen missing on March 25. Furthermore, he also told police that Gretchen did not have the habit of texting using abbreviations and wrong grammar, but her estranged husband, David, sure did. On December 21, 2020, the police said that they found Gretchen's remains some 3 miles away from her house. Acting on the missing person report, When the police went to Gretchen's home to investigate, they found evidence of someone having cleaned the place in a hurry. The washing machine had a load of towels with a reddish substance that the police suspected to be blood. The police also seemingly found droplets of blood in the bedroom and some broken glass on the stairs. Furthermore, they found that the garage had been cleaned with bleach recently. While talking to witnesses, several came forward and said that they had received the same text from Gretchen, where she said that she was being moved to a COVID facility. When the police asked the Jupiter Medical Center about the COVID facility in Belgrade, they were informed that no such facility existed. A neighbor of Gretchen came forward and told police that on March 21, a terrifying scream was heard from the house. Another neighbor said she saw some kind of white chemical being used to clean the garage. Suspecting something to be up, the police decided to check the dismantled CCTV camera equipment they found in Gretchen's garage. Furthermore, the police found Gretchen's car in the parking lot of Jupiter Medical Center and, on examining it, noticed blood on the gearshift and steering wheel. When checking the CCTV footage, the police saw that David Anthony had parked his truck in the parking lot on March 23. The next day's footage showed a tall man parking Gretchen's vehicle at the parking lot. Authorities suspected that this tall man might be Gretchen's estranged husband, David. Plus, the CCTV footage recovered from Gretchen's home showed a tall man waiting to ambush Gretchen at her house. The moment she stepped out, muffled screams filled the video. Another camera showed a person lying motionless on the floor of her garage and the tall man reaching up to disable the camera. Suspecting David of the crime, the police then decided to trace both David and Gretchen's phones. They traced their phones to Pensacola, where they found footage of a tall man trying to sell some women's jewelry at a shop. The police even thought they noticed a ring that belonged to Gretchen. When the shopkeeper was questioned, he identified David as the one who tried to sell him the jewelry. The couple's phones were then traced further to Texas. By this time, the police were confident of David Anthony's involvement in the crime. Thus, when he was spotted in New Mexico on March 31, 2020, detectives arrested him and charged him with murder and kidnapping. After the arrest in December 2020, the police said that David had pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and had even agreed to lead the police to where Gretchen's body was. On December 21, 2020, the police said they seemed to have found Gretchen's remains in a site that was 3 miles away from her home in Abacoa, Florida. In January 2021, David was sentenced to 38 years in prison based on his second-degree murder plea. He remains incarcerated to this day.
Number 6.
Jennifer Farber Dulos is a Brown University graduate, born in 1968. She received a master's degree in writing from New York University Tisch School of the Arts. Dulos even maintained a blog. She married Fotis Dulos in 2004. The two had 5 children together. In 2017, the couple filed for divorce. The same year, Jennifer Dulos filed an emergency full custody order for all of her children. This was denied, and the couple was granted shared custody of their children for the duration of their divorce proceedings. Jennifer had alleged that she felt threatened by her husband due to his irrational and controlling behavior. She feared for the physical and emotional well-being of their children. It was also alleged that Fotis threatened to kidnap their children if Jennifer did not consent to the terms mentioned by him in the divorce settlement. On June 3, 2017, she allegedly said, "I am afraid of my husband. I know that filing for divorce and filing this motion will enrage him. I know he will retaliate by trying to harm me in some way." These claims were all refuted by Fotis Dulos. In a blog Jennifer wrote in 2012, she hinted at sleeping better with her young daughter when her husband was away. Towards the end of the post, she wrote, "Oh, Noel, I know that this too shall pass. But I fear I may be in a body bag by then." Jennifer Dulos dropped her children to school on May 24, 2019, and that was the last time she was seen. She missed a doctor's appointment she had scheduled for that day, and by evening the same day, her friends reported her as missing. Upon investigation, the police found blood in the garage of Dulos' house in New Canaan. It was later found that it was Jennifer's blood. The police also found evidence to conclude that she had been a victim of a serious assault. The same day of her missing, two people, resembling both Fotis Dulos and his girlfriend, were caught by surveillance cameras disposing of garbage bags, which contained clothes and sponges with Jennifer's blood, in around 30 trash cans in Hartford. Jennifer's car was found later in Wavani Park and New Canaan. In June 2019, Fotis Dulos and Michelle Troconis were arrested for fabricating evidence and hindering prosecution. However, they pleaded not guilty to these allegations. Fotis Dulos' attorney, Norm Pattis, stated that Fotis could not have killed his wife based on the given timeline of events. The following month, while on bail, Dulos released a public statement in which he said, "But I trust the system and the process, and ask the public to do the same." Furthermore, he stated that it's understandable why the public thinks of him as a monster, as they were only given certain kinds of information. In September 2019, both Dulos and Troconis were arrested again on the charge of tampering with evidence. They once again pleaded not guilty. In January 2020, Dulos was charged with capital murder, and kidnapping. The police authorities claimed that Jennifer was killed sometime between 8:05 a.m. and 10:25 a.m. after she came back from dropping her children to school. They also claimed that Fotis tied up Jennifer with zip ties and placed her in her own car while cleaning the garage. Troconis, on the other hand, was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Kent Douglas Moyni, Fotis's former attorney and friend, was also arrested on conspiracy to commit murder. This is because Moyni's estranged wife expressed her fear that he was involved in Jennifer's death. Though the police and canine dogs found a shallow grave on his property, no body was found. They suspected that something had been removed. On January 30, 2020, Fotis Dulos died in a New York City hospital. At the time of his death, he was being treated for carbon monoxide poisoning. According to his attorney, he had tried to commit suicide. He put a tube from the exhaust pipe of his SUV to the inside of his car in the garage. In a note he wrote, he stated that neither he nor anyone accused is guilty of having killed Jennifer. While the worst is presumed to have happened to Jennifer, considering the blood they found, her body has still not been discovered to conclusively state anything. On the record, she is still a missing person who has not been found. Carrie Luft, the spokesperson of Jennifer's family, recently said, "We miss Jennifer beyond words. The ache of her absence doesn't go away. Countless questions remain unanswered."
Number 7.
19-year-old Danice Day was last seen in Monte Vista, Colorado on January 9, 2002. She disappeared after leaving the Dos Rios restaurant where she was employed as a waitress. Danice Lee Day was born on May 8, 1982, to parents Rod and Janine Day. She grew up in Laramie, Wyoming with her two older sisters. Her parents divorced when she was a kid, and she moved to Colorado with her father and stepmom after she became pregnant with a son during high school. In 2000, Day started a relationship with Victor Braun, and they soon had a daughter together. They resided with the two children in a ranch in the 3900 block of Larrett Road in Monte Vista, Colorado. At the time of her disappearance, Day was employed as a server at Dos Rios restaurant on 1635 U.S. Highway 285, Monte Vista, Colorado. On the afternoon of January 9, 2002, Day finished her shift at work and returned to her residence. Day allegedly told her boyfriend that she was going out with a friend that evening. She never returned home that night and has not been heard from again. On January 12, 2002, Day's family reported her missing to the police. Braun told investigators that he and Day had argued that night because he was not familiar with the man with whom she was planning to go out with. Friends and family said that Danice had been planning to leave her boyfriend and was gradually moving out of their ranch, but stated that she would never abandon her two children. Day left behind all of her personal belongings at the ranch, including her vehicle, keys, wallet, cellular phone and clothing. 26-year-old Victor Braun lived with Danice Day in Monte Vista, Colorado, along with their young daughter and a son she had from a previous relationship. Braun was said to be very possessive and insecure. During the course of their 2-year relationship, Day moved in and out of their home and had rented her own apartment in Monte Vista. In 2009, Braun was held at the Rio Grande County Jail on charges of burglary, drugs, and motor vehicle theft. He agreed to reveal to police the location where Day's body was hidden, in exchange for pleading to manslaughter and dismissal of other charges. Authorities found 2 barrels at the bottom of Lyman Lake in the Arizona mountains some 400 miles away from the San Luis Valley. One of them contained charred small pieces of bones, oil, glass, skeletal muscles and a femur. Forensic examination of the remains determined the body was burned before it was stuffed in the barrel and thrown in the lake. The cause of death remains undetermined, as there was very little soft tissue left. On September 18, 2009, a DNA analysis from the El Paso County coroner positively identified the remains as belonging to Danice Day. Braun claimed that he came home on the night of December 1, 2002, to discover his girlfriend Danice Day dead from an alleged drug overdose. He reportedly panicked as he was on probation at the time of her death and decided to dispose of her body into a lake. On December 31, 2009, Victor Braun was sentenced to 12 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections for the death of Danice Day. He was also given a $1,000 fine, 2 years mandatory parole and ordered to pay over $7,000 in restitution in the 2 burglary cases that were dropped as part of his plea bargain. Danice Day is survived by her 2 children, Joshua and Kaylee. A memorial was held in her name in Colorado on November 6, 2009 at the United Methodist Church, and in Wyoming on November 13, 2009 at the Alice Hardy Stevens Center.
Number 8.
22-year-old Dru Sjodin was a student at the University of North Dakota and a native of Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. Family and friends recalled her as a person being completely in love with life and laughter. Dru loved making others happy and was always ready to lend a helping hand. Adored by her family, friends, and the community, Dru is missed terribly even today. Dru was visiting the Columbia Mall in Grand Forks, North Dakota on November 22, 2003. While leaving, she was on the phone with her boyfriend but abruptly disconnected the call. Anxious, her boyfriend tried calling her back but to no avail. Additionally, he received a call shortly after but could only hear button presses and static. Authorities later stipulated this call originated near Fisher, Minnesota. That was when he decided to approach authorities and report Dru as missing. Although Dru's car was located in the mall's parking lot and the police found a sheath for a lock blade knife inside, there was no sign of the missing girl for months. The police even exhausted most methods of investigation but were unable to locate Dru's whereabouts. On April 17, 2004, a few months after her disappearance, officers managed to recover her deceased body from a ravine located near Crookston, Minnesota. Her clothes were partially torn off her body and her hands were tied behind her back. The victim had also suffered multiple stab wounds, visible bruises, and a cut on her neck. Moreover, there was also a rope around Dru's neck, indicating that she might have been strangled. Although it was pretty clear that Dru had struggled with her killer before her life was snuffed out, an official medical examination proved that she was raped. When the police began investigating the murder, they ascertained the timeline of Dru's disappearance and brought in the FBI. The FBI profilers suggested that the attacker was most likely to be a sex offender already registered on the database. With the Columbia Mall covered in CCTV cameras, authorities decided to check footage from every store, hoping to catch something or someone that would stand out. While going through videos, investigators noticed a man roaming aimlessly throughout the mall. He sat on a bench near the exit and, instead of shopping, mainly seemed interested in looking at others. The man seemed quite interested in an unrelated blonde-haired woman and even appeared to exit the mall right on her toes. His behavior screamed suspicion, and interestingly, he was also registered on the sex offenders database as one Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. Determined to confirm their suspicion, authorities met Rodriguez and took his permission to search his car. Inside, they found a lock blade knife submerged inside a bottle of cleaning substance. Surprisingly, the knife was a perfect fit for the sheath found in Dru's car, and thus, authorities arrested Rodriguez on the spot. When forensic teams examined the car extensively, they recovered other items with Dru's DNA on them. Although Rodriguez was then charged with kidnapping, The recovery of Dru's body allowed authorities to charge him with murder. Once produced in court, Rodriguez pleaded not guilty to the charges, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. He was subsequently found guilty of murder, and the court decided to sentence him to death in 2006. Although Rodriguez did not confess in court, he did confess to the crime at a death row interview. The confession prompted his lawyers to file a petition against the death sentence, claiming that Rodriguez was not in control of his mind during the crime. Rodriguez stayed on death row for more than a decade before a judge overturned his sentencing in 2021. The judge claimed that there were misleading testimonies by a medical examiner at the original trial, and Rodriguez's constitutional rights were violated. Thus, the death sentence was overruled, and Rodriguez is now expected to face a new hearing. However, it seems like he has not been resentenced yet, as there are no reports on the matter. Nevertheless, federal prison records show that Alfonso Rodriguez Jr. remains behind bars at the USP Terre Haute in Terre Haute, Indiana.